call it the gas tank scenario.
Okay.
So here's a gas tank, right? We'll just say
I got one. I got a gas tank too.
So we got a 16-gallon tank.
Okay.
If I fill this up with fuel and overflow that, generally that means something bad's going to happen. So it's the same thing with training. If I have a bucket that's 16 gallons, but you want to do 20 gallons of work because you think you've got to add all this stuff.
Because you think you need all that stuff.
Because you need it, we're going to have an issue.
All right, we just worked out. I'm with Joe Kenn. He is a performance training specialist with over 40 years of weight room experience.
35.
No,
don't get me to 40 yet.
40? Well, you're 57 years, so I figured you've probably been training since you were a teen.
Yeah, I started training, well, I mean, unofficially, I probably started training around 12 in my basement. Officially, I was a younger athlete, so I started training officially with the high school at 13.
Okay.
Because I was a 17-year-old high school senior, so I was young.
Guys, this isn't a podcast. This is just a
conversation. This is a gym cast.
This is a gym cast. This is a conversation with make sure all the settings are good. Guys, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just trying my best.
We're just having fun.
You have 20 years of coaching experience in the collegiate sports, NFL as well, about 10-ish years. Yep. I mean, good Lord, like the number of athletes you've coached. And I think the thing I really want to talk about with you, and just for the viewers, is the thing that's like, it'll kind of like be a stepping stone into like other ways of thinking about training, is it kind of goes back to, hey, you got a professional athlete. This guy got here. Now he's a performing machine. So when they're in a weight room and he's a strength and conditioning coach, his job is to make sure on game day they play good. So not in the weight room. They're not trying to like slap each other on the back and max out every workout and like, you know, have videos that are impressive on social media for people. It's just, hey, what does he need? How do we get him ready on game day? And just that line of thinking creates a completely different, route compared to, what people think when they're sitting there looking at these athletes online training and they're making fun of their weight room technique. Oh, those clean and jerks are so sloppy. Look at Usain Bolt. Like, he doesn't know it. He's the fastest man on the planet. He can do whatever the hell he wants. So let's just go with that.
All right. So first I'll say this. Number one, and let me precede this by this. I've made a lot of mistakes. A lot of it, and some of it is what you said about what I call corrosive exercise technique, because you're chasing something that's not necessarily needs to be chased, and that's a specific number in the weight room. So first off, I will say this: an athlete who is on social media that's trained by a coach and has horrendous technique, that's on the coach. That's not on the athlete, because what is the athlete always going to do? He's going to want to please the coach. And most times, where do athletes learn how to do something? From the coach. And if the coach allows it to happen, what is an athlete generally going to do? It's going to happen. And they're not going to be corrected because the coach is okay with that. So when you see what you may determine, and again, everything's determined, everyone's is respectful of everybody's opinion, but that's where internet bashing is kind of fun to me, and that's why I stay away from some of that stuff, especially Twitter, man. Woo. But,
I'm glad.
So
I don't do that one.
Yeah. So
although Instagram's trying to bring it back to Threads.
Yeah, that's true.
And now Twitter's not even Twitter; it's X.
Yeah, it's X, and then I don't even understand Threads, but whatever. That's another story. But to go back to what you said, the biggest thing, and this goes back to like, when we've heard these debates with like the West Side with Louis, is you can never be strong enough. And I used to think that, like, because the stronger somebody got, it was allegedly that could lead to a more robust and resilient athlete. It could lead to a faster, more explosive athlete. In some respects, there's a lot of different adjectives to put in front of strength that differentiate different types of strength. But what I learned was that there are certain markers, and again, I don't know what those markers are, but at a certain point, someone squatting 25 pounds is not going to change one inkling of that athlete being better in their sport. But is there another exercise that they are deficient at? If they got stronger at that exercise, could that be an effectiveness where it enhances something that happens in sports? So you're always looking at like a transferable type of trait. And I will remember, and I always like to say this too, so you guys know, is I've known at this point in my career as a football guy, because that's where I spent the last 12 years. I coached women's volleyball. I coached women's basketball. I coached women's gymnastics. I coached tennis. I've been strength coaches for all these sports. So I've seen how strength and conditioning can benefit numerous athletes at numerous levels.
And you've coached kids.
And I've coached 10-year-olds, yes,
right,
with not even touching a weight, kind of like we were talking about how to slow cook athletes. And what I learned is strong is strong, and then let's find a different way to get strong. So my biggest example would be, as a football guy and as an ex-offensive lineman, it's the difference between bilateral strength or two-legged strength, a squat or a deadlift, versus single limb strength. And there's major deficiency. Now, I think people have gotten better. I don't want to get, but like when I was coming up, there was major deficiencies in how we trained athletes with single limb work. So for example, yeah, I've got an athlete who can squat 500 pounds, but literally if an athlete's on the field, over 80% of the time, and that number may be skewed, the athlete's on one leg because they're running lateral shuffle or something to that component.
Yeah,
so if I can have an athlete who squats 500 pounds, everybody's like, oh, that's pretty strong. But then the athlete can only lunge 95 pounds. There's a deficiency.
So does it transfer to the field?
So now,
does it transfer to what the job they're trying to really do is?
So from my standpoint is, do I invest time in getting him to squat 550? Or do I invest time into him doing a proper lunge? And these are very rudimentary exercises, but you can understand
this is
the
also
example.
Just like examples.
Yeah. Can I get him to? So what do I think from an individual who played sports? Where do I think there's more applicability and transferability of him squatting 525 or him lunging 135? I'm going to go with him lunging 135.
Yeah.
I think that's going to have a lot more, because again, look at the lunge and how to perform a qualified, competent lunge. There's a lot of things going on that people don't necessarily realize. You've got to stay, like when I teach beginners, 10-year-olds, and I teach even anybody learning a lunge for the first time, we break it down into cadences. Like I call it, we take the step and then we have to stop. And then we have to stabilize, because even myself, I have the worst balance. So I do everything based off what I call block zero concepts on lunge. Stop, stabilize. So now I've got to get my balance, drop, move into that position of range of motion, and then drive back to recover. So if I can get these athletes to now take that very robotic cadence position and now turn it into what I would call a cyclical lunge, where now they do a forward lunge, and then the next step is they led with their right leg, and now they're going to pull through with their left and do a walking lunge.
So that's emulating more of what's going to go on.
Now,
Yeah.
right, and then now, so that's a sagittal plane moving forward. Now I need to get them to do the sagittal plane in reverse. So now we do a reverse. Now I need them to do transverse plane, like we did a transverse squat. Well, that's the first component of me teaching a transverse squat. The next component is now I got to teach them a transverse lunge. So where we were just loading and recovering to a triangle, now once I've loaded, I've got to be able to explode back to recovery and not slide the foot because I'm not strong enough. And then that turns into a shuffle squat. So now I lunge, push off the front leg to bring the back leg forward, lunge again. Then I got to open up into a transverse plane. Okay. So this is, again, all of that stuff has more relevance to general athletic traits than me taking a 500-pound squatter and making them a 525-pound squatter. So I think that everybody has certain standards. I'm not here to debate that, but you kind of have an idea when you've worked with enough teams, and if you've got specifically with certain age groups, you kind of know where an athlete, the norms are. I always talk about bell curve mentality. That's not cookie cutter. It's where's most of the kids fall into.
Right.
Most of the kids fall into 2 standard deviations away, either good or bad. And then you have your outliers. You have your high-level athletes at any age group that are elite for that typical bracket. And then you have your athletes who they need a lot of remedial work. It's not that they're good or bad. They're just underdeveloped, immature. You always see it. That's why nothing matters in child development and athletics until puberty, because so many kids mature at different ages. You see it all the time, especially in Pop Warner football. You see the kid who's so talented, he plays running back, and they give him the ball. The rest of the people just stand around and watch this kid take off down the field. You got 3 or 4 kids who got X's on their helmet because they're overweight at that time or too big, so they're not allowed to run the ball because they weigh too much.
Wait, they'll put an X on the helmet?
Yeah, because of body weight. And you can only play line or certain positions.
I didn't know that.
So then, but then what happens now by the time they go high school? The kids that were really good, these guys caught up. You know, the kid who had a mustache in the 9th grade, now at 12th grade, they all got mustaches. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The kid who wasn't allowed to play running back because he was too heavy as a Pop Warner kid is now just beating that kid out for the running back position.
Okay.
So you have to be aware of this stuff. This is the early specialization of younger athletes is really, in some ways, overblown the success and failure rates when they get, because again, start them early, burn out early.
Well, the thing is, I think the thing that's interesting that you just mentioned is like the quote, you can never be strong enough, but you could be strong in the wrong thing as well. You know, especially for like, I think people often forget like what is it you're actually trying to do and work backwards from that, because this movement might not be for you if this is your goal. But a lot of people get tied into, you know, they really like deadlifting or squatting and they just can't stop doing it. So they keep rationalizing and, you know, reasoning in their head like, oh, you can never be strong enough, so I'll just keep boosting these lifts, when they really like to do them when it's really not helping them do what they need to do, whether it's lose weight, build muscle, be a better athlete, feel better, you know, just, you know, what is it you're actually trying to do, and then pick the movements or the activities or the type of workout and match it to that. And I think that takes a lot of discipline and a lot of just kind of like self-understanding and just like, look, I really should probably be working on these instead of just going in and adding 20 pounds to my squat today.
Well, I think let's just like look at our workout today. We found something about a particular exercise in your personal training that you didn't feel there was value because you didn't feel what everybody else felt, and then we realized that, well, it's a range of motion change that makes it have now it's got to, whether or not you use it or not in the future, but at least we figured out where the deficiency was in the movement, or where your over efficiency was in the movement, and make it somewhere where now you're like, oh, well, if I do this at this range of motion, it's earned the right for me to have value to at least think about it. And I think what happens with most athletes are like anything else. Where are they going to resonate to? What they're good at.
Right.
So if I'm an offensive lineman and I know I'm good at squatting and no one's helping me educate the fact that, hey, man, you want a scholarship? You need to get more athletic.
Yeah.
So, but if you're just so hard-headed, or the people that are in your entourage are so hard-headed that, well, we're just going to keep squatting. All right, well, you can squat yourself out of a scholarship because you can't move anymore. Right? Like, yeah, you're very good at one pattern. And that's the difference between strength athletes, so to speak, in the discipline of powerlifting or weightlifting, where those movements are very specific. You have to be good at those movements. But that's your sport. I coach a team sport where when they perform in competition, there's not anything out there that looks like a weight room.
Right.
So that's where, as a coach, and it takes a lot of time, because when you love the weight room and you come from different genres, like I came from powerlifting, so I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. Before I really wrap my head about what am I doing, it's like anything else. What is a lot of your programming going to look like? It's going to look like a powerlifter, just like this is how strength and conditioning started. Most of the first full-time coaches were being hired because they were the local expert. Well, if your expertise in your area was a bodybuilder, I can venture to think that a lot of the programming at that university looked a lot more like a bodybuilding program than a powerlifting or a weightlifting. It just seemed like when strength and conditioning for sports came up, it was more of the powerlifting, weightlifting coaches who were getting the jobs, to a point where it almost necessitated like you were training a sport with a sport. Like, there's a lot of people who are diehard Olympic lifting aficionados that think if you don't clean or snatch or jerk for athletics, you're wrong. And then you got the kind of guys who are like, oh, well, I can throw med balls and jump, and I'm in the middle. I figure out how to partake in all of that stuff because I think it all has value at different levels.
Probably at different times too.
Yeah, and like a 10-year vet in the NFL, unless he wants to clean, can jump and throw med balls.
Yeah.
An NFL. So you learn different ways to develop plans based off of the level of the athlete, and that's where, like for myself, I came up with this block plan. As athletes mature through a program and they learn different traits, they get exposed to different types of training modalities. Again, especially it'll be harder this day and age in college because of the transfer portal. But when you had a guy for 3, 4, or 5 years, you can build out what I called a quadrennial plan or a modified long-term athletic development plan. Like, we bring him in as a freshman. We have this introductory phase that's more calisthenic and relative strength based because of, I think that is a lost art of physical fitness at all levels. I'm came up in grade schools in the 70s where the presidential physical fitness tests were there. I wish they still had that. I wish
they don't have it anymore.
If they do, they're not using it enough.
That was my first real motivation for training.
To get the patch?
To get the patch, because that's actually how I started working out. I tell people it was martial arts, but it was actually just to keep things simple. I say that, but it was actually I was kind of like a fat kid, kind of pudgy and didn't have very many friends, and then I wanted to as an arbitrary goal to get the Presidential Fitness Award test because I was never athletic, and so I started training for it, and I could do everything but the run. And I remember after school, I had to go out to the track, and my dad was a runner, and he'd go out there with me, and he'd pace me lap by lap. And it took me weeks of really hard training. Like, I had to push myself. Like, it was very uncomfortable.
I still,
and I got it.
I think I have the file of what the progression was, but like, I remember, like, for us, it was a blue patch and then a gold patch. So it was like, if you can do 45 sit-ups in a minute, you got blue. If you could do 60 or more, you got the gold.
Yeah.
If you had the 880 run, the 440 run, back then when they still did yards, right?
Yeah.
And it was how many push-ups, chin-ups. I mean that stuff there, like that's the stuff that we've lost that capability. And what you're seeing now is, and that's the difference between weight room strong and athletically strong.
Right.
I always tell people, I wish I knew, and this is no blame to my high school coach, no blame to my dad. It is what it is. We all learn. I wish I was athletic strong. I'm weight room strong. Like, I can do things in the weight room that, some people would say impressive. I think they are what they are, but couldn't do a chin up for the longest. I think the best I ever did in college was 7 chin-ups. Legit, no old dead hang, but it took me years to do 1.
Yeah.
And I tell people all the time, I think the lack of free play and the things that we used to do in certain aspects in playgrounds across the country is why we have a lot of these certain types of injuries, because most of our younger athletes cannot manipulate their body weight. Like, even though I couldn't do a chin-up, I could do monkey bars. So I had a little bit of shoulder stabilization where, nowadays you don't see anybody in parks playing, so they have no real understanding of relative. You used to have the little, jumping a fence, right?
Yeah.
Jumping out of a tree, or, we're teaching people how to land when you learned how to land as a kid by jumping out of a tree and knowing if you landed with straight knees, you felt like 2 lightning bolts went off your legs. So you automatically knew, I got to land like this, or jump off a garage roof. But
I can remember when I was, I think I was 12. This is a weird memory. I don't even know if it was real. I think it was. We were at a baseball game. There's a dugout, and off the dugout was the grass. And we were all standing on the dugout, and we're all jumping off the dugout and hitting the ground because we were getting that rush.
Yeah.
We were basically doing parkour before we even knew what it was when we were 12. And you had to learn, like, you're getting this rush from jumping off this thing, and it feels good, but then you want it to keep doing it because it's fun, so you have to hit the ground and roll.
Right.
So
or you learn how to do a forward roll, or then you start learning, well, if I do this, I can land like this, and I don't get that shot.
It's just
I
intuitive.
always remember, like, first time you jumped off something and you land, and you're like, you feel these two shocks going, you're like, well, that can't be right. Like, and you just learned. And that's why, like, for me, one of the biggest things I promote when kids go, I want to start my kid lifting weights. How many push-ups can he do? And I'm talking about a qualified push-up, not a hip down. Yeah. Like it look like a seal. Too many kids nowadays, right? Hey, let's do some push-ups. First thing they do is drop their hips. Arms don't break and they think they're doing push-ups. And again, I'm not saying I'm qualified to do a perfect push-up right now either, but I understand, like, hey man, we have to understand that to get to point B, you have to start at point A. We live in a society that's opposite. We want all of our kids to go through sports and have sporting excellence, and then want to know why they're all banged up because they have no general understanding of physical fitness skills. Like, how many kids can run a base but can't skip? How many kids can, carry a football and play football at a decent level but don't know what a gallop is? Can't crawl, can't do a forward roll, right? Can't touch their toes. I mean, we're just building these alleged, and we're calling them athletic. No, athletics is someone who I think is highly capable in general physical fitness capabilities and has a high level of relative strength. Sport-specific activities is a different, like people, like I would love to say I was an athlete. I was a football player. My athletic skills are minimal, but they asked me to play offensive line. I had really good offensive line skills. That's different. I would much rather have better overall athletic skills and then I guarantee I'd have been a better offensive lineman. Yeah. And I think that's where I think that we have to understand the differences of the oversaturation of specific training at all levels versus, hey, there's a reason why, and again, I'm not qualified or experienced to go in detail, but know enough just through listening and reading where, the Eastern Europeans and everybody over there, they have these school of sports that everybody's like, oh my God, they just put kids in the school of sports. Well, and again, I'm not professional enough to say, but I do understand like what they do is though, they take these athletes and they really take them through general physical fitness types of things, gymnastics and things like that. And then what they do is they look at what these athletes can accomplish, then they funnel them to where they think they're going to be. What do? We just funnel them into where they think they're going to be or what their parents want them to be. And then, we'll add this in later. But I mean, how many kids I got a hitting coach, a throwing coach. I got this coach, that coach. Can't do a push-up. Yeah. Gonna have Tommy John and 12 years old.
It's interesting the I noticed in working with my peers in this space, the lack of well-roundedness sometimes is almost like a phobia where going back to the phrase, you can never be strong enough, because there's so many problems with it now that you talk about it. It's because, all right, let's say that you are, like going from a 600-pound deadlift to a 620-pound deadlift when 600 took you a long time to get to. Getting the extra pounds on that lift might take a disproportionate amount of effort compared to shoring up a weakness like, I don't know, why don't you stretch for 10 minutes in an exercise? Like people are afraid to be human almost. Like they won't do cardio, they won't do stretching. They're afraid it's going to affect them in the weight room when really they're affected in the weight room because they don't do any of that stuff. Exactly. Because they're too specialized. Whereas if you threw in 10 minutes of stretching, you'll get 100% of the benefits for what you want to do and what you want to feel. But 100%. They're so narrow tunnel vision on, why don't I just bump it up 20 pounds? Is it like, okay, 620, you got it. Is your life going to be really that different? I mean, or if you're a competitive athlete, how long is that going to last? What's next? 640, when it took you a year and a half to go from 600 to 620, how long is it going to take you to get to 620 to 640? And are you going to break down in between that time because you didn't work on all these other things that you were phobic about?
And I think the good thing about what you're saying is, isn't that why we can at least be thankful that Louis Simmons brought some of the training modalities in, because his was spend 80% on your accessories and 20% on the big list, because you'll find your weaknesses to improve. Or just like you said, flexibility, proper preparation. People call it warm up. I will be, I'm very transparent. I thought I had a really good squat session today. And I know why. because we had one hell of a prep.
Yeah.
If I would have came in here and just, touched my toes a few times and tried to accomplish what we accomplished today, I think I lose.
Right.
And again, it goes back to, like you're saying, how do we get there? It's education. It's the fact that you see, other people influencing other people by, there's a reason, like we talked about with Brian, his longevity in strongman, where there really is never strong enough in that sport.
Right.
That might be the only sport where that, or the strength sport, powerlifting or something like that, depending on what it is. But when it comes to athletics, like even in your world of acrobatics, I mean, you can walk on your hands. And I don't, let's just say you can walk on your hands. You go out to your little stump and you walk. Hey, I'm going to do 100-foot handstand walks today. I don't really think if your bench press went up 20 pounds, it's going to change your ability to walk on your hands real well. You got to be skilled at walking on your hands, right?
Yeah.
So it's just like that. It's like, so if I'm being evaluated on walking on my hands, I'm not going to worry about bench pressing 20 more pounds. I'm going to do, hey, I might need more isolative work on my front delts. You would know more of the real muscle groups that are I might have to work on just overall body awareness and balance. Kick my feet up against the wall and see how long I can just stabilize myself in place. It has nothing to do with being strong enough. It's being strong where you need to be strong. And I think that's the difference of strength sports, that I call the strength sport disciplines.
Yeah.
And then a team sport atmosphere where the weight room isn't necessarily your practice field.
Gotcha.
That's where you can be strong enough in this area, but you're not strong enough in that area. So we're going to maintain this, or progressively maintain.
Yeah.
I don't want them to go down, so I've got to work, or I don't want her to, but we need to emphasize this. And this is where you get into the older the athlete is, the more the elite an athlete is, they have a better understanding how to explain that to the alleged professional strength and conditioning or performance coach. Then communication and working together, you try to find out the best practices for that individual. One of the all-time, I've worked with a lot of great athletes. Some of them really just like to be led. Mm-hmm. Some like to lead. And the ultimate one of collaboration and working together by far was Greg Olson, played tight end for us for the Panthers while I was the strength coach there. Every year at the end of the year, within a week after the season, he's in the office and we're on my grease board. These are the components I need to improve on. These are certain things I'd like to see. These are other things. But what you have to learn is these are highly motivated people.
Yeah.
And remember, more is not advantageous. Like there's high volume, low volume, and optimal volume. Louis always talks about optimal volume. I don't mind pushing a little bit higher because my athletes are in a different type of endurance and metabolic demands than a lifter. So when we look at different things, I understand the volume manipulations. But like what I have to remind them is there's only so much you can do. Like even in your world, the way you train, like there's so many different aspects of being a tremendous athlete and strength athlete on top of that. But I call it the gas tank scenario.
Okay.
So here's a gas tank, right? We'll just say
I got a gas tank too.
So we got a 16-gallon tank.
Okay.
If I fill this up with fuel and overflow that, generally that means something bad's going to happen. So it's the same thing with training. If I have a bucket that's 16 gallons, but you want to do 20 gallons of work because you think you've got to add all this stuff.
Because you think you need all that stuff.
Because you need it, we're going to have an issue. So then this is where your job as a professional is, okay, if this is what you think we need to improve on, what are we taking out?
And what are the costs of taking that out and not fixing that?
So then
weakness?
The thing is then it goes, well, oh no, I'm not trying to do that. I'm like, look, man, here's your tank. Now we've added 4 more gallons. It's not going to work, bro. We got to figure out how to keep a full tank of 16 gallons for you. So that's where now you look at the programming and go, okay, some of this ancillary stuff.
It's interesting.
And it's a game. It's an ebb and flow. Ebb and flow.
You use the you use 20 gallons as your number, which for an elite athlete, it's about 20 hours a week.
Right.
You know what I mean? Which is probably about average on what a lot of elite athletes will spend, like actually physically training. Now, that's not counting all the other crap you got to do outside the weight room with the nutrition and the therapy and going for walks and recovery and sleep and all the other visualization. All that stuff. But I mean, for Gen Pop, or for someone that, is aspiring just to get in better shape, or just trying to get motivated to go to the gym, they need to be realistic with how many gallons does your tank actually have with your schedule if you're an RN. If you're an RN and you work 3 12s in a row and then you get a day or two off, and I don't know, RN's schedule like that.
No, that's weird. Or like police and fire, right?
They might have 4 to 8.
Yeah, 48 hours on, 72 hours off, or some crazy rotations.
Yeah. So when you're in that scenario where you only got, like, your tank is only this big, it's going to be even harder to select, And you also have to think about what type of quality of your life you like. So I'd like to kind of like move the conversation, if you're okay with this, towards like, maybe one of the listeners here that's not an elite athlete, that's not on a team sport, that's not a pro strongman, that's not a pro bodybuilder. And they're just like, look, I'm trying to do a lot of different things, and I watch a lot of fitness videos, and I get excited about this, and this. So, how do I make a choice between all these different things? And, my answer is, well, I don't know. Honestly, again, that's my answer. Right. I don't know. So
because everybody has different goals. I would say this, without knowing anyone's goals, you'll appreciate this. Motion is lotion. Learn to move.
Yeah.
Like we were just talking when we were filming this morning, we did our little reset program. It took us 8 minutes.
Right.
How much better did we feel?
Oh, it was like cardio.
Yeah. So for the example is, you see a lot of this now, right? You see it on social media. Hey, as soon as you wake up, you can do these 5 stretches without even getting out of bed.
Yeah.
Right. But to me, that's lazy. I don't want to say laziness, but that's a crutch. My thing is, hey, everybody's got something, a garage, or I can't, but there's room in your house where buy a small gymnastics mat if you can afford it. If not, go on your rug and do an 8-minute routine.
Yeah.
Every morning. That's your first step to success. You have to build on this. You have to build small steps. You can't go, it's like remember the early generation of CrossFit, and this is not to degrade CrossFit. I mean, I've learned to earn a lot of respect to professional CrossFitters, but what was their big sell? Oh, we're going to give you a Krusty the Clown Rhabdo t-shirt because we're going to wear you out. But that's not really what we're looking for.
Right.
We want to deter that. So how do you do that? Remember, like I was saying, with some of these vets, small dose of excellence with people who have not done any exercise in the general pop. What are the simplest small doses of excellence you can do? Stand up and do a basic, can you touch your toes? Mm-hmm. Try to go to whatever that range of motion is, hold for 10 seconds, repeat for 6 reps. Go out and walk 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Just walk 5 minutes, because that's 5 more minutes than you did the day before.
I think of it as like, when I think about training and volume over the course of a week, and I'm basically a professional athlete because it's how I make a living.
Yeah, for sure.
The term professional is, do you do it to make a living? Yes. I am a professional athlete. It's a really helpful mindset for me to think about it as like a piggy bank. So when I do 5 or 15 minutes of this type of work, 20 minutes of flow rope, 30 minutes of stretching here, I'll do a cardio session after the airport.
Dropping money in a piggy bank.
That is exactly the way
like that.
That's the way it feels in my brain. Right. Like I feel like I'm adding money to piggy bank, and it's like I get a high off that little thing. It's not like it just adds up. I think it all adds up.
But for you, that's your routine. I knew, like we were talking about, because I had a whole different my training plan and my goals and my aspirations from the beginning of the year till I went on my vacation in September was very skewed, because I was expecting to do surgeries. I was I want to say I was depressed. Mm-hmm. I think I went through a little of that because I was so frustrated, because I love this stuff and I know who I am. Like we've talked about, I know the realization of who I am is. And it came back to like, okay, the key to success is routine. And what I think a lot of times, like that's why Start now. Don't start January 1st. That whole New Year's resolution.
I started doing mine in October, November.
I started doing mine September 19th.
You beat
September 20th, because that's when I got back off my vacation.
Yeah.
But like, start now. If your goal is to improve your health, why are you waiting I'll wait till January 1st because that's our new year. I'm going to make a New Year's resolution. Why don't you make a life resolution today?
Yeah, you build momentum up to that.
And then again, small doses. It's anything that you do tomorrow that you didn't do today is a win. So if you go out and you don't think walking 5 minutes is a win when you haven't walked 5 minutes a day for the last 20 years, I guarantee you it's a win.
Yes.
If you start tomorrow and I'm going to do 6 old school traditional toe touches, but right now, day 1, I can't get my fingertips to below my knees. Well, now you can watch for progress. It's simple. It doesn't have to be, I'm going to join a gym. You don't have to join a gym to walk, right? I'm going to join a gym. You don't have to do a gym to do a flexibility. You can find plenty of flexibility stuff on social media that's very beginnerish. But where can that lead to? It could lead to you joining a walking club. It could lead to you, hey, you know what? I can touch my toes again. I'm going to go take this beginning yoga class, or I'm going to take this beginning Pilates class, or I'm going to go, do whatever. But you're not going to get there by just hey, New Year's, I'm going to go start Pilates. No, you're not. You're going to quit Pilates. You just don't know it yet.
So here's a interesting thing. I think you'll like this. The butterfly effect, where the butterfly flaps its wings, and then 20 years later, it caused a chain of events that just kind of like struck across that span of time, and it was all because a butterfly flapped its wings. So I feel like that 5-minute walk that you're talking about, that you went for, that might have improved your digestion enough to be able to feel good enough in the evening to go ahead and do the dishes in the sink and do your laundry. And then all of a sudden, and this is exactly what happened yesterday. So we got home from the airport and I was feeling like shit. And before my brain could talk me out of it, I was like, I'm going to jump on the cardio machine and I'm going to do 17 minutes of get my heart rate up and break a sweat. Once I break a sweat, I'm going to get off. And then I did that. It gave me the energy because I released that energy by getting that movement in. I unpacked for the trip. I packed for my next trip, which is tomorrow. I did all my laundry, did all my meal prep, answered some emails. And if I did not do that 15 minutes of cardio,
you'd have went to sleep and not.
I would have just laid on the couch and looked at TV. And then and now I'm ahead a day, and now I'm in here with you working out, and I don't have to worry about that stuff, and I can be more present. And it all the way down the line, all because I did one small dose of excellence, like you said.
Yeah, and it was like saying with me, like I'm going out of town tomorrow too, and I got half my stuff packed because I got into a situation where I wasn't lazy.
Right.
I mean, and when you're saying, and now you had a specific outcome, but like you're saying, hey, that might get you more motivated to go wash the dishes, right?
Yeah.
Well, guess what? It might get you more motivated that, hey, I got the dishes done. You know what? I'm feeling pretty good. I'll go do another 5-minute walk.
Right.
And those are, again, I never wanted to train general pop. Like that was like one of the things. And what I've learned as I continue to build out these programs for myself, I'm like, and we discussed it, I'm like, my pre-activity prep is a general pop program. Like a general population program, we can build on that. Like, hey man, come in and start with us. The first week we might just come in and do the reset. And then we can add in the activation in the core work. Yeah. And then we can add in the readiness. And then, you want to add a little cardio or a little fun? Well, let's go do a battling ropes.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, now you've turned this commitment of 8 minutes, because now you're building up resiliency, robustness, you're seeing confidence. Now it's a small little, like that program. We talked through it, but if that was me coaching someone through, that was 32 minutes today. That's not a big investment.
Right.
But it is when you're at 0. So what's 0, 8 minutes is a lot more. I can do 8.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm ready for 32. But again, that 8, that little
win.
movement is a win. And don't tell, like you even said, here's someone who's, like you said, you are a professional athlete. Most people recognize you by the incredible feats of flexibility you can do. But yet here you are doing a rudimentary segmental roll, and you're like, Like, come on, man. Don't tell me. See, right there tells me, because that was my thing. It's like, oh, some of this stuff, if he actually does this with me, he's going to laugh. And then I'm like, all right, I know what his expertise is and what his athleticism is. I know how bad I'm at it. And here's somebody that I would put as a high-level elitist at it. There's got to be something to it if he's even feeling something resonate through him as he preps. So, again, it's just a matter of stepping out of a comfort zone of realizing, well, this is just my life, but it doesn't have to be. And I'm not trying to dog anybody, man. We all have our problems, all have, but are you willing to find solutions? Like, a lot of times it's how does someone answer a question? Well, you got to have people who are willing to help you find solutions. And sometimes people's solutions are, come train with me 3 times a week for an hour. And mine's like, hey, just go wake up in the morning and do some log rolls, right? Like, or touch your toes.
Yeah.
You don't need any, because here's what I've learned in athletics, and I think it relates to everything. And people don't want to hear it, but I'm just telling you, man, it is what it is. You cannot motivate the unmotivated. No matter how jacked up me and you are.
Right.
We're excited about this stuff. Like, I could stay in here all night and talk to you. I mean, like I've told people all the time, I go on podcasts, I usually set records for durations of podcasts because I just sit around and run my mouth.
Well, we got 45 minutes, so you got 3 more minutes to run your mouth.
but for some people, they're not that.
Yeah.
They see it as a chore. Like, and again, it's because of how they were exposed to stuff. Like my wife, for example, she used to train her butt off because she always was a little heavier growing up. It became a chore. So for her, it's hard for her to be motivated to get in consistently. I can resonate with that. I understand that. My oldest son, when I trained him, I took it too far. So he's not in the training much anymore because it's a chore. It's
right.
Not something he enjoys. Where my youngest son, I had learned from my oldest and stayed further away from him, he winds up becoming a strength coach.
Huh.
You see what I'm saying? Because it wasn't a chore to him. He actually had an ability to enjoy training, where my oldest son, I took it to a different level. That's a different time for a different podcast.
And I think that's partly innate, but also something that can be cultivated. If you could find the fun in things and learn how to turn something into play and be curious about it, then the person that does something that feels like play is always going to outwork the person. Yeah. I mean, you can't compete with someone that just likes to do it for fun.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? It's like they'll do it all day.
Like I said, I need a knee replacement, and we're here box squatting with maximal effort. Just because that's what I'm gonna squat. Like, that ain't changing. But like my son, like for us, our first real what was our first real exposure to the weight room? Curls and benches.
Yeah.
Right? That's fun. My oldest son, you know what his first exposure was? Glute ham raise, Nordic curl, pistol squat, chin up holds, climb a rope. It ain't really much fun in those 5. Maybe the climb and rope, but the other 4, not so much. So again, I get it. I learned valuable lessons on coaching kids, and let's end it like this. For all of y'all who are looking to be parents, or all of y'all who have kids that you want them to excel in sports, and you think you can help them get there, remember this. They're going to have numerous coaches, some 20, 30, who knows how many, if they become a sporting athlete. They're only going to have one mom and dad. Don't screw that up.
Yeah.
Because when they look at you as a coach and not a mom or dad, it's not fun.
And if you don't plan on having kids or raising a family, and you're just trying to be in the best shape you could be and be the best physical specimen you can be and get the most out of that, 5 minutes of excellence matters.
Just small doses of excellence. It doesn't have to be something crazy. And, and again, the hardest thing to do is to start. That's the hardest thing to do. Because people think they've got to start at a level we're at. No, I didn't get, hey man, I do a walk every morning now. And again, here, you want to talk about making changes? I'm older. I was doing a walk with a 60-pound vest. Calf got a little sore. I know calves, boy, they suck to get. So now I've had to adjust. So I want to be a walk because I like to be outside. Now I got to wake up, and my walk is now a 20-minute deal, like you said, on an arc trainer, because that's part of my routine.
Yeah.
I'm going to start the day with a meditation, and then right after that, I go to a walk. And then I prep for whatever that, like today, I'm going to train. On tomorrow, I have to go travel, but I'm still going to get up early enough to do my meditation and my 20 minutes so that I feel good about getting on the plane.
Yeah.
And then when I get off the plane, I'll do what
Might see you at the airport tomorrow.
Yeah, I go fly out at 9, I think.
In the morning?
Yeah.
Okay, I come after you.
Okay. I did get upgraded to first class, so I'll be sleeping.
Oh, you got one of those nice upgrades
yeah,
too?
I'll be sleeping nice.
It's excellent.
But again, I appreciate your hospitality. I'm so happy I got to come out and train with you.
No,
it was a great session.
I don't do very many of these talking videos like this, guys. And if you want more of them, let me know. Drop a comment or who you would like to see me chat with. Or even types of questions. But Joe Kenn is one of the most interesting and most knowledgeable people.
And we're only 59 miles away from each other.
Yeah, well, we're both traveling a lot.
Oh, no, I'm not. I don't mean that it's just funny how, man, people just like you said, we met each other and we're like, hey, man, we're really right down the street. And, not that, and again, it's only the second time I've been here and, in the 2 years we've known each other, but it's just the fact that we know each other, right? Yeah. And again, you had an injury. Your wife said, call up Joe Kenn and see what he says.
You're the first person I called.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's what camaraderie and that's what things like fitness can do, is it just brings different people from different genres, especially like you understand, you really have a great reach. I mean, the different genres of physical fitness that you touch, because your abilities relate to all of it. It's so cool to be able to meet people like yourself that can expose me to different ways of doing stuff and really be impressed and quite humbled about, man, people, like I always go back to like the human species. I was over in Italy, I'm watching, I'm at the Colosseum, I'm like, man, people built this with their own hands before the industrial age.
Well, that's the feeling I got when I was in Italy, when I went to St. Peter's Basilica and stared up at the ceiling. I was like, humans 500 years ago built this most insane thing.
Mosaic.
And what's my excuse?
We were there too. We went to St. Mark's too in Venice, and it's like, and you're like, God, and that's like me. Like I still get amazed that this plane's going to take off tomorrow.
Yeah.
Teleport
across the continent.
Hey man, later today, you're gonna iCloud me a video. It's like, how does that even work, man? I mean,
well, let's get a little dose of starting energy here.
I need that for the drive home.
Wait. Okay, this one's a little used, but it's still good enough.
Oh man, I haven't had that in a while. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's some good stuff right there, buddy.
Yeah.
You didn't, man. Why didn't we use this today before squats? Whoa, man, that got me.
I got Joe. I got your links in the description below. Are there any other places that you just want to say out loud, just to reiterate?
I mean, to be honest with you, like we talk about different things, I am trying to ramp up my YouTube. That's more of my coaching stuff. Inside, I'm at, what is it called? Inside the House with Joe Big House Kenn.
Yeah.
And then I'm a predominantly Instagram person.
Okay. Yeah.
I like Instagram, and I do respond pretty decently to direct messages. Myself, I don't have a team. As a coach, I have a lot of people reach out. Don't ask me for jobs. I don't have any jobs to offer. I've had that before. Like, hey, can I send you a resume? Well, you can acquire, but let me give you a real email to send me and talk about that. But again, I just think I like Instagram. For us in fitness, Instagram seems a bit, I don't do a lot on Twitter anymore. I just find that kind of hilarious. Yeah. I don't have a clue what Threads is all about, although I made an account. But I'm trying to ramp up YouTube. We talk, and I appreciate your help on understanding YouTube a little bit more. But I'm predominantly an Instagram guy, and my website is bighousepower.com. Got to work on that upgrade, but there's some really good content on that right now.
All right, Joe. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I want to do more videos with you.
Yeah, man.
I love the workout we did, guys. Check out the workout we did. It is on the screen right here. My head is the thing that you can click on to subscribe to the channel. And this is only, part one.